It was a quiet afternoon in the countryside. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over golden fields. Two men were working the land, moving with the steady rhythm of people who had done this for years. To anyone passing by, they were just ordinary farmers, simple clothes, weathered hands, calm faces. Nothing about them screamed danger. A group of local thugs, looking for trouble, spotted the pair. They had been causing problems in nearby villages for weeks, and now, seeing two men alone in the fields, they saw an opportunity for an easy target. Laughing and sneering, they began striding toward the farmers, cracking their knuckles and shouting, confident in their strength. "Hey, you two, what are you doing here? Think you can hide from us?" One of the thugs jeered. The farmers paused, glancing at each other with a calm, unreadable expression. There was no fear in their eyes, no panic. Just a quiet, steady presence that made the thugs hesitate for a split second, but arrogance quickly filled that pause. They assumed the men were weak, untrained, and ready to run at the first sign of trouble. As the gang closed the distance, one thug kicked a small rock toward the farmers, trying to provoke them. The farmers didn't flinch. They didn't respond. They simply kept working, letting the tension build naturally. Every step the gang took toward them seemed to increase the silence around the farmers, making the world feel smaller, as if it had slowed down just enough for the moment to stretch for something unexpected to happen. "Let's see what these guys got," another thug whispered, smirking at his friends. They didn't notice the subtle shift in the farmer's posture, a barely perceptible tightening of shoulders, a calm focus in their eyes. The audience already senses it. Something is off. These men are far from ordinary, but the gang has no clue. They are stepping into a trap they can't yet see, and the quiet calm of the farmers is the only warning that danger is coming. Hook. They thought they were attacking ordinary farmers, but they had no idea who they were about to mess with. Have you ever underestimated someone in real life? Comment yes if you have, and stay tuned, the first move will shock you. The gang laughed louder now, their confidence growing with every step. They circled the two farmers like predators sizing up their prey. "Think you can fight us?" One of the thugs sneered. "We'll teach you a lesson you'll never forget." The farmers didn't move. They didn't even look directly at the thugs. Their calmness was unsettling, like water that appears still but hides a powerful current underneath. One of the gang members stepped forward, kicking dirt at one farmer's feet. "Hey, look alive!" he barked, trying to provoke a reaction. But the farmer simply adjusted his stance, letting the dirt fall from his boot. Not a word, not a flinch. The gang exchanged confused glances, their arrogance starting to waver ever so slightly. They had expected fear, submission, or at least hesitation. What they got instead was a quiet, impenetrable calm. One thug, frustrated by the silence, reached for a stick lying on the ground. "All right, you're asking for it," he threatened, raising it high. But the farmers remained motionless, their eyes scanning the group, analyzing every movement with precision. Every thug in that gang felt the tension rising. Something about these men didn't sit right, but they shrugged it off. Overconfidence had always been their strongest weapon until now. Meanwhile, the villagers nearby had begun to notice. Some paused at the edges of their fields, others peeked from behind fences. Phones appeared in hands, cameras aimed at what was unfolding. The tension in the air was thick, almost electric. Every second stretched longer than it should have. Suddenly, one farmer spoke, his voice low, calm, commanding attention, without raising volume. "We don't want trouble," he said. "But if you continue this, you will regret it." The words weren't loud, but they carried weight. The gang paused for just a moment, caught off guard by the sheer confidence in his tone. The audience already feels it, the first cracks in the gang's overconfidence. And now, the mental trap tightens. They think they're in control. But in reality, the calmness of the farmers is the eye of a storm about to hit. Before the real action begins, I need to know which country or city are you watching this from right now? Comment below. Are you seeing this chaos from New York, London, Manila, or somewhere else? The gang laughed again, trying to cover up the unease. One of the younger members shouted, "Let's go. Let's see how tough you really are." They lunged forward simultaneously, hoping to overwhelm the farmers with numbers. But the farmers moved as if anticipating it, not frantically, not panicked, but with a calculated, almost fluid response. even without fighting back yet. Their posture, their focus, their unshakable calmness was already a silent warning. These were not ordinary men. Every thug now felt the creeping doubt that had first flickered moments ago grow stronger. Their minds started questioning maybe they had misjudged these farmers. Maybe these men weren't who they seemed to be. That hesitation, that tiny seed of fear, is all it takes before a predator realizes they are no longer in control. And that is exactly what's happening. The gang doesn't know it yet, but the real storm is about to begin. And the farmers have been waiting for this moment the entire time. They thought they could scare these men, but they were about to face something no one saw coming. The gang circled tighter now, their jeers louder, their movements more aggressive. One thug, the biggest of them all, stepped forward and shoved the smaller farmer hard against a wooden fence. The sudden impact made the crowd of nearby villagers gasp. But the farmer didn't stumble. He didn't even flinch. He straightened up, his calm expression unbroken, as if the shove had been nothing more than a gentle tap on the shoulder. The thug blinked, momentarily confused. This wasn't the reaction he expected. "Hey, what's wrong with you? I just pushed you," the thug growled. He raised his fists, ready to strike, but something in the farmer's eyes froze him for a second, a quiet intensity, a silent warning that this wasn't a fight he could control so easily. Meanwhile, the second farmer, the one who had been quietly observing, moved slightly closer, his posture relaxed but ready. His hands were empty, but his presence alone seemed to tighten the air. The gang, already on edge, felt an inexplicable unease creeping into their overconfident minds. They were sure they were stronger, faster, and in control, but doubt began to worm its way into their thoughts. One of the younger thugs, eager to prove himself, lunged at the first farmer. The farmer sidestepped smoothly, his movements fluid, almost graceful, as if he had done this 1,000 times before. The thug stumbled past him, crashing into his own friend. The gang froze for a split second, the sound of bodies colliding, echoing in the quiet fields. The villagers watching from the sidelines were holding their breaths. Phones were raised, recording every second. The atmosphere was tense, every person instinctively aware that this was not an ordinary fight. Something was about to shift and everyone could feel it. The gang tried to rally. "Get him! Grab them both!" one of the older thugs shouted. They rushed in together, attempting to overwhelm the farmers, but the farmers moved with calm precision. Each block, each step, each subtle motion was calculated. Not one unnecessary move, not one reckless strike. The crowd could see it. The farmers weren't struggling. They weren't panicking. They weren't ordinary. The thugs were the ones losing control, their overconfidence crumbling as every attack was met with effortless avoidance. One thug swung wildly, trying to land a punch. The farmer's hand caught it mid-air, redirecting the force harmlessly to the side. Another tried to tackle him, only to be lifted and gently but firmly thrown aside like a rag doll. The gang's confusion turned into panic. This wasn't just skill, this was something beyond human expectation. The audience feels it, the thugs are no longer in control. Every second, their fear grows, while the calm, composed farmers seem untouchable. Their arrogance has become their weakness, and the farmers' quiet confidence has become a mental trap. The first farmer finally spoke, his voice calm but commanding. "You came here thinking this would be easy, but attacking without reason has consequences." Each word landed like a punch of its own. The gang stepped back, realizing for the first time that these men were not ordinary. If you were watching this in person, what would you do? Would you run? Would you try to stop them? Comment below, we want to hear your reaction. The thugs exchanged panicked glances. Fear was replacing their arrogance. They had no idea what they were up against, and every move the farmers made only reinforced that their confidence had been a mistake. And yet, the farmers remained calm. No anger, no malice, just readiness. A quiet, terrifying power that made the air feel heavier with every second. The crowd sensed it, too. The suspense was unbearable. The calm before the storm was about to break, and the gang had walked straight into a trap they couldn't escape. They thought the fight was theirs, but the moment they realized who they were really facing would change everything. The gang froze mid-attack. Their attacks, once aggressive and chaotic, slowed as confusion spread among them. Something about these two farmers didn't make sense. Every move was precise, every dodge calculated, Every counter, effortless. They weren't just skilled, they were untouchable. In the crowd, whispers began to spread. One villager, jaw dropped, muttered under his breath, "Wait, is that?" A few heads turned, eyes widening as realization started to dawn. No way. Could it be? That's Chuck Norris. Others started murmuring. And the other? That's Steven Seagal, isn't it? The crowd around them grew silent. Phones hovered in midair as everyone tried to capture what was unfolding. The tension had shifted. No longer were the farmers mere victims. They were legends, icons whose names alone could stop criminals in their tracks. But the gang didn't understand yet. They were still thinking of the farmers as ordinary men, only stronger than they expected. They hadn't connected the dots. Not yet. Chuck Norris stood calm, his eyes scanning the gang, unshaken. His breathing was steady, controlled. Every subtle movement told the onlookers one thing. He was ready, but he wasn't angry. Not yet. The true power of his presence was in the quiet authority that seemed to make time slow down around him. Steven Seagal mirrored that calm, his posture relaxed but lethal, shoulders squared, eyes locked on the largest thug in the group. There was no tension in his body, only readiness. The gang could sense it on some level, but their minds refused to accept it. They were trapped in arrogance, unable to comprehend that these men were far beyond ordinary. A thug stepped back nervously. I think we should leave," he stammered. The others scoffed at first, but doubt was creeping in. The attacks that once seemed safe and easy now felt reckless. Every dodge, every counter, every subtle glance reminded them that they were no longer in control. The villagers' whispers grew louder. "That's him. That's Chuck Norris, the legend. Seagal. He's a master too." The gang's confidence wavered, but their pride wouldn't let them back down. They had already committed to the fight. Now, though, they were caught in a mental trap. They couldn't stop, yet they were terrified of what was coming. Chuck Norris finally spoke, calm, authoritative. "You came here thinking you could intimidate us, thinking we were ordinary. But attacking without reason has consequences." His words were soft, almost casual, yet every thug froze as if they had heard a physical blow. Steven Seagal added, equally calm, "Walk away now, and you can leave without embarrassment. Keep going, and you'll regret it." The crowd, sensing the shift, erupted in quiet murmurs and gasps. Phones zoomed in, capturing the moment when the tide turned completely. For the first time, the gang felt what it was like to be utterly outmatched, not just in strength, but in presence, reputation, and sheer aura of power. And still, the farmers didn't move aggressively. Their calmness was their weapon. Every second they remained composed, every glance they gave, made the gang doubt themselves more. They were trapped psychologically, unable to fight back effectively, because their minds were now filled with fear and uncertainty. The audience watching, whether in the story or on YouTube, feels it too. The suspense is unbearable. Every second draws them in deeper, forcing them to imagine what it would be like to be in the gang's shoes. The mental and emotional trap is complete. You are both terrified and in awe at the same time. Have you ever witnessed someone completely outclass others without even striking? Comment yes if you have, and tell us what city or country you're watching from. The gang now hesitated, their pride clashing with their fear. This was no longer a fight of strength, it was a battle of recognition, respect, and raw reputation. And the farmers? They remained silent, letting the weight of their names speak for them. The gang thought knowing their names would scare them, but the first real strike would leave them speechless and humiliated. The gang's bravado was crumbling. Their confidence, once sky-high, had been chipped away by calm glances and whispered recognition. Every thug felt it. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. And yet, pride, arrogance, and fear of humiliation kept them frozen in place. Chuck Norris stepped forward slowly, almost casually. His boots barely made a sound against the dry earth. He didn't shout. He didn't swing. He simply moved with the quiet authority of someone who knows he is untouchable. The air seemed to tighten around him, every thug instinctively stepping back. Steven Seagal mirrored that same calm. His eyes scanned the group like a predator, analyzing prey. Every muscle in his body relaxed yet coiled, ready to strike. One thug tried to muster courage. "We can still take them," he muttered to his friends. The others nodded, though doubt flickered in their eyes. Then it began. The first strike was subtle, almost poetic. Chuck Norris didn't rush. He sidestepped the largest thug's overconfident swing and, in one smooth motion, disarmed him and sent him stumbling backward. The thug hit the ground, bewildered, looking around like he couldn't understand what had just happened. Silence hung in the air for a heartbeat, and then fear erupted. The gang had underestimated them completely. This wasn't just skill, it was absolute control over the situation, a mastery that turned the entire field into their stage. Steven Seagal moved next. Without a single raised voice, he neutralized a thug rushing toward him. A flick of the wrist, a subtle foot movement, and the man crashed harmlessly into the dirt, every move precise, every action effortless. The crowd gasped. Phone zoomed in. Villagers whispered in awe. It's happening. It's really happening. The gang was trapped psychologically now. Their minds raced. How could two ordinary-looking farmers be this powerful? Every arrogant thought they had moments ago had turned into panic. Every attack they tried was met with perfect counters. Every step they took deeper into the field only tightened the mental trap they had walked straight into. Chuck Norris spoke again, calm, commanding, almost casual. You came here thinking we were easy targets, thinking we were just farmers, but attacking without reason comes with consequences. His words weren't loud, yet they carried a weight heavier than any punch. The gang froze. Every thug felt a chill run down their spine. Fear was now entwined with awe. Steven Seagal added, equally calm, "Walk away now, and you leave with your pride intact. Keep going, and you'll face something you can't undo." The thugs hesitated, their earlier confidence now gone. They had realized too late that they were not facing ordinary men. They were facing legends. Names whispered in movies, stories, and legends of martial arts, men whose very presence commanded respect. The farmers moved again, slow, deliberate, and unstoppable. Chuck disarmed another thug. Steven redirected an attack so subtly, it almost looked like choreography. No one was injured seriously, but the gang's humiliation was complete. Their fear replaced aggression, and every attempt to fight back was neutralized with calm precision. The audience is now fully trapped. They feel the thrill of dominance, the satisfaction of seeing arrogance humbled, and the tension of watching legends control a chaotic situation without raising their voices. Which move shocked you the most? Chuck's disarm or Seagal's perfect counter? Comment 1 for Chuck, 2 for Seagal, and tell us your city or country. The gang staggered backward, panic in their eyes. Pride, fear, and disbelief tangled together, making every second unbearable for them. Every person watching, whether villagers or YouTube viewers, is now mentally trapped. They know the gang will never recover, and they cannot look away. Chuck and Steven stood calm, silent, and unshakable, letting the gang realize fully. The fight had never been theirs to win. The moment everyone had been waiting for, the true reveal of who these farmers really were, was about to leave the gang humiliated and the crowd in total awe. The air in the field was electric. Dust swirled around the struggling thugs, their panting breaths loud against the quiet authority of the two farmers. What had begun as a confident, arrogant attack had completely collapsed in mere moments. Every swing, every shove, every boastful step they had taken had been countered effortlessly, gracefully, and with terrifying precision. Then, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. One of the villagers, who had been watching wide-eyed from the sidelines, couldn't contain himself. He stepped forward, pointing toward the farmers. That's Chuck Norris," he shouted. The field went silent. The words hung in the air like lightning. For a split second, even the thugs couldn't breathe. Their arrogance, which had carried them this far, evaporated instantly. "And the other? That's Steven Seagal," another villager added, shaking his head in disbelief. The gang's faces drained of color, eyes widened. Some stumbled backward, almost tripping over each other as panic replaced what little courage remained. They had not expected this, not for a second. The two ordinary farmers were legends, icons whose names alone carried weight in every corner of the world. The realization hit them like a physical blow. Every move they had made, every boast, every attack, had been against men they could never hope to defeat. Chuck Norris didn't gloat. He didn't need to. Every thug's eyes, wide with fear and awe, said it all. Steven Seagal's calm gaze reinforced the same truth. They were untouchable. The control of the situation had shifted completely, leaving the gang humiliated, powerless, and exposed in front of everyone watching. Some thugs tried to speak, to salvage a shred of pride. "We didn't know," one stammered. We thought you were." His words died in his throat as Chuck Norris took a step forward, his voice calm, yet carrying the weight of inevitability. "You attacked without reason," Chuck said, his tone soft but final. "You thought we were ordinary. You thought we would run, or break under intimidation. You were wrong. And now you must face the consequences in respect, in humility, and in awareness that actions have repercussions." Steven Seagal added, equally composed, "It doesn't take strength to strike blindly. It takes wisdom to know when not to strike at all." The villagers whispered, some clapping softly, some gasping, all witnessing a moment of absolute reckoning. Phones hovered in midair, recording every word, every glance, every stunned reaction from the thugs. The mental trap had closed. The audience, both in the story and on YouTube, was now fully invested, unable to look away, feeling every ounce of the gang's humiliation and the farmers' silent, controlled power. One by one, the gang realized their defeat was not physical, it was psychological. They had been overconfident, arrogant, and reckless. They had assumed appearances, told the story. Now they understood, appearances are deceptive, and true power lies in calm, mastery, and presence. Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal, side by side, slowly walked toward the edge of the field. Not with triumph, not with anger, but with quiet dignity. The gang staggered backward, their faces pale, mouths agape. They could only watch as the men they had tried to humiliate simply walked away, leaving the chaos, dust, and their own fear behind. The villagers erupted in applause and murmurs of admiration. Cameras captured every second of the unfolding legend. And for the audience watching, the lesson was unmistakable. Never judge someone by appearances. Never assume strength or skill based on looks alone. True mastery speaks for itself in calmness, precision, and unshakable confidence. Have you ever seen someone completely outclass their attackers without even raising their voice? Type yes if you have and comment your city or country where you're watching from. As the crowd cheered, the thugs slunk away, utterly defeated in mind and spirit. The legends of the farmers, Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal, had turned a moment of danger into a lesson in humility, skill, and mental dominance. The story doesn't end here. The video of this incredible showdown is about to go viral, leaving millions in awe and the gang facing consequences they never imagined. The field had quieted. Dust still hung in the air, but the chaos was gone. The gang, once loud and confident, had disappeared, retreating with their pride shattered and their faces pale with fear. Villagers whispered among themselves, still in awe, recounting every precise move, every calm glance, every moment where the ordinary farmers had turned the tide completely. Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal didn't celebrate. They didn't gloat or boast. They walked slowly, deliberately, side by side, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But everyone around knew exactly what had just taken place. The legends themselves had been among them, and they had left a lesson far bigger than any fight. The villagers began to gather around, clapping softly, murmuring words of admiration. Phones captured the entire event, angles of precise movements, slow-motion recreations, and the stunned reactions of the gang. Within hours, the videos would begin to circulate online, and within days, the story would go viral, reaching millions worldwide. "Do you realize what just happened?" one villager whispered to another. "Those men, they're legends. The gang didn't stand a chance." Even the gang, now regrouping at a safe distance, couldn't shake the memory. They had entered thinking it would be easy, expecting fear and submission, only to be completely outclassed. Their arrogance had been met with calm mastery, their aggression countered with precision. The lesson was clear. Appearances can be deceiving, and disrespecting someone based on what you see can have consequences far greater than you imagine. The farmers paused at the edge of the field, turning to address the small crowd. Chuck Norris's voice was calm but carried authority that made every word matter. "Strength isn't just about fists or weapons," he said. "It's about control, patience, and knowing when to act. Steven Seagal added, his tone steady and deliberate. And true power isn't used to humiliate others. It's used to teach, to protect, and to remind people of respect for themselves and for others. The villagers listened, hanging on every word. They understood the moral. Courage is quiet, skill is subtle, and true mastery comes without arrogance. The fight itself had ended, but the lesson would resonate far longer than any punch or kick. Within hours, social media lit up with videos of the confrontation. Comments poured in from around the world. Unbelievable. Those farmers were legends. I can't believe Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal were right there. Millions were inspired, not just by the combat, but by the humility, calm, and control displayed. If you believe no one should be judged by appearances, type "respect" in the comments and share where you're watching from. The gang would face consequences beyond embarrassment. Their reckless arrogance had been exposed to the world. But more importantly, Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal had turned a dangerous, tense situation into a lesson about humility, strength, and justice, all without violence, beyond what was necessary to stop the threat. As the legends walked away from the field, the crowd slowly dispersed, still whispering, still replaying the events in their minds. For everyone watching, the takeaway was unforgettable. Never underestimate anyone. Respect is earned through actions, and calm mastery beats reckless aggression every time. The field returned to its quiet rhythm, but the story would echo across screens, hearts, and minds worldwide, a story of respect, humility, and power in its purest, most inspiring form. Type legend in the comments if you were amazed by this showdown. Subscribe for more epic stories, and remember, appearances can deceive, but respect is always real.